In this video, I'm going to talk about the album Who Do We Think We Are by Deep Purple, released on January 12, 1973, celebrating its 50th anniversary. I'm going to do something different this time, though. I will spend a little less time than I normally do on the album review, and after that, I will rank all of the Deep Purple albums with the Mark II lineup, which is the lineup consisting of Ritchie Blackmore on guitars, Ian Gilan on vocals, Roger Glover on bass, Jon Lorn on keyboards, and Ian Paice on drums. I have 7 albums to rank with this lineup, but first let's talk about Who Do We Think We Are. So, Who Do We Think We Are is the 7th studio album by the band, and it lasts with this lineup until Perfect Strangers in 1984. And I'll talk about that in the ranking later on. It was an album that got mixed reviews. A few critics thought it was one of their weakest albums, and others said it was one of the strongest. So this album has 7 tracks and a runtime of about 35 minutes. The opening track is Women from Tokyo, and it's probably the song that's most well known. That song is a tribute to the country of Japan, where they were one of the first rock bands to play in that country. The song is very iconic. The guitar riff is very memorable, has one of the best drum intros. This is a song where the keyboards stand out and Ian Gilan gives a powerful vocal performance. Another thing that stands out in the song is the melodic and dreamy interlude that comes in halfway through the song and also includes a piano solo as well as a short guitar solo. Next is Mary Long. This is a rocker. It has some pretty bold lyrics about a woman who is like a hypocrite, someone who seems to have very high moral standards but ends up doing whatever she wants, and the song is a classic rock sound. Super Trooper is a hard rocker. It has a classic sound with some hints of that classic sound from the 60s. Also reminded me a little of the band Cream. I like the guitar solo in the song, specifically how you can hear the keyboards and bass right behind it. Smooth Dancer is a hard rocker with Ian Gilan giving some of his harder edged vocals. This one has a nice groove to it. It has an old-time rock and roll sound with a fast-paced piano playing. The guitar riffs bring back a sound from some of their previous albums like Machine Head and In Rock. I also like the keyboard solo in this song, and it works well with the guitar sound. Rat Bat Blue is probably my second favorite song on the album. This one has a guitar riff that when you hear it, you know it's Ritchie Blackmore. Another song that shows off their classic hard rock sound. The keyboards and the bass guitar mix very well, and the guitar sound is very good, and Ian Gilan gives some of his signature screams. The keyboard solo is one of the best on the album. It's very futuristic sounding, slightly psychedelic, one of their best deep cuts. Place in Line is a slow blues song. This one is a departure from the classic hard rock sound. Ian Gilan is singing in a notably lower range, but also gives a great vocal performance as he lets out some of his signature screams. Ritchie Blackmore shows off some of his bluesier guitar playing, and the song has a cool instrumental passage towards the end, where you can hear the keyboards and the bass guitar. The last song, Our Lady, it's a rocker, a little slower, but I like the groove that it has. Has some cool keyboard playing and is an interlude, and the song's not too bad. So that's it for the review. Let's get right into the ranking. I have 7 albums to talk about. This ranking will be from worst to best in my opinion. So let's start. At number 7, The Battle Rages On from 1993, their 14th studio album. The last album with Ritchie Blackmore, making it the last of the MK2 albums. Even though I have it last, it's still a decent album. I think the front half is probably better than the second half. The opening track is the title track, and this one is probably the best song. It has an epic sound, some really memorable guitar riffs, and just reminds me of classic Deep Purple. The second track, Lick It Up, has a bluesy guitar riff. The rocker with powerful vocal delivery by Ian Gilan. In general, it's a fairly heavy album with some songs that kind of sound like the hair metal of that period. Specifically the song Time to Kill. The song Solitaire has a sound that reminded me of something of the classic period. Overall, a good album, just comes in last. At number 6, I have Who Do You Think We Are? The album I already talked about. If you want to know, here it is in the ranking. Higher than some of their later albums, not as high as some of the albums released during this period. Number 5 is Fireball from 1971. It's an album that does not really get a lot of attention, given it was kind of sandwiched between 2 of their greatest albums, but it's still a good one. Probably my favorite song on the album is Demon's Eye. Has some memorable guitar riffs by Ritchie Blackmore. The song Anyone's Daughter is different, kind of like a country song, but still think it's pretty good. They have some longer songs inside too, like The Mule, Fools, and No One Came. These ones have some pretty cool like instrumental parts like within the songs themselves. It kind of has like a jam session feel at times. This album is kind of like the forgotten middle child. It's good, but not quite up there with their best. And number 4, The House of the Blue Light from 1987, their 12th studio album. Second to last album with the Mark II lineup until 1993. And this one is like really underrated. I think some Deep Purple fans might not agree with me having it like above Fireball or maybe some of the others, but I think this songs are catchy. That's what I think. And I feel that they tried some different ideas in this album. So, for example, Bad Attitude starts with this church organ style intro and just great arena rock song. The Unwritten Law is probably my favorite song in the album. It has a sound kind of reminds me of like Led Zeppelin's Kashmir, but at a faster pace. Call the Wild is just pure 80s arena rock, kind of song that could get the crowd going during a live performance. And my other favorite song is called Strange Ways, another one with that cool like Middle Eastern vibe. And this is a great song with some really cool Ritchie Blackmore guitar riffs. My top 3 are all solid, kind of like hard to rank, but I have it in this order. Number 3, Perfect Strangers from 1984, the 11th studio album, and the return of the Mark II lineup. The band's first album with this lineup in 11 years. It was a commercial success. Reached the top 10 in the UK, top 20 in the US. The title track and Knocking at Your Back Door were singles, the latter reaching 61 on the US Billboard Hot 100. So the album received just positive reviews across the board, considered one of the band's best works. It's a solid album front to back, one of the best comeback albums ever. And what I noticed about this album, it was released in 1984, but it sounds like it could have just come out in like the 70s. It just captures that signature sound. Other than the 2 singles, I like the song Nobody's Home. I like the keyboard intro on that one and just the hard rock sound in general. And my other favorite is A Gypsy's Kiss. Just has some great blues rock guitar riffs, really cool keyboard melodies, and probably like one of their best songs out of their whole discography. At number 2, Deep Purple in Rock from 1970, released on June 5th. And one of the most important albums in terms of hard rock and heavy metal. It was released at the same year as Black Sabbath's debut album and Follow Up Paranoid. Now, those albums were influential in terms of like guitar riffs and like the dark and evil sounds of most metal bands today. But Deep Purple was more influential in terms of playing with that speed and precision. They did what was never before like on this album. So the opener, Speed King, is kind of like proto speed metal. Child in Time, just one of the most epic songs ever recorded. The song Ian Gilan gives us some really intense screams, and that's a style that would be copied by many like metal artists throughout the 70s, the 80s, and even today. But with that being said, it's a great album. It's not my favorite. It's close. It's classic influential, but I have one more above it, and that has to go to Machine Head. From 1972, it's my number 1. Not only on this list, but if I ever did a full like discography ranking of Deep Purple, this would probably still come in number 1. Actually, my top 3 probably wouldn't change, I don't think. Just great start to finish. I even like the B-sides. It's not even on the actual album. That song, When a Blind Man Cries, that's like one of my favorite rock ballads of all time. We got the 2 songs that are like probably like 2 of the first like heavy metal songs, Space Truckin' and Highway Star, just the like real metal. I'm not talking about Black Sabbath. Those songs were covered by many metal bands. You got Smoke on the Water, that's a classic. That's like the first song everybody learns to play guitar on. The rest of the songs just great. Maybe I'm a Leo, Pictures of Home, Never Before, Lazy, all great songs. This is a 10 out of 10 album, nothing more to say about it. So, that is all for this ranking. I have a few full reviews of the albums that I mentioned. So I made a playlist, linked it right there. That's all. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe. See you in the next one.